Right, good evening. This being the member of the Board of Health, this is an open meeting of the Town of Auburn, Department of Public Health. Is being operated by a hybrid format under Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022. The public can join the meeting remotely by telephone, that number being 224-501-3412 and access code 236-529-341. Or public can join via computer at the link listed on the meeting posting. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. As a preliminary matter, my name is Eric Otteson, Chairman of the Board of Health. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda participating remotely are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Carolyn Griffin?
Yes, present.
Darlene Coyle?
Here.
Amy Contois?
Here.
Colleen Hines?
Here.
Paula Conway?
Yeah.
And we called Carolyn. Excellent. Lindsay Guitar is not with us this evening. Town officials and employees participating. Oh, I already did that. Excuse me. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. This remote meeting is being recorded through the remote platform. If there are participants participating remotely, ask them to state, oops, excuse me, if are there any
This conference will now be recorded.
Sorry, I didn't realize.
Okay, so we're now being recorded there.
Because we have people access.
Excellent, okay. All right. Excellent. All right, moving on to the agenda. We have a hearing just scheduled at 6 o'clock, dog hearing. Is there a motion to open the hearing?
I'd like to make a motion to open the hearing.
And I will second that. All those in favor of opening the hearing signify, Eric Otteson, yes.
Carolyn Griffin, yes.
So the hearing is now open. Second. The purpose of this hearing is for the board to hear evidence concerning Dobie and Champ, owned by Dana Doust of 12 Willow Street in Auburn, for a requested nuisance or dangerous dog hearing, and to make a determination as to what action to take, if any, regarding the dog or dogs involved. The board will hear from representatives from the town that have been involved in investigating this matter. The board will hear from residents of the town and other witnesses involved, if any. The board will give the dog owner the opportunity to speak if he or she so chooses. The board will then continue or close the hearing and make a decision as to what should be done in this case, and will issue an order accordingly. The town officials, I will place you under oath. And all the town officials that are present, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
You're now placed under oath. The complainant or any other witnesses who are present, did they sign? Do we have their names?
Has everybody signed in to the sign-in sheet that's here for the dog hearing?
If you could come up and just sign in, just so we have that as a matter of record. And then after you do that, I will place any of you who are going to be testifying under oath, knowing that those who are going to be testifying must be placed on oath. And we will get to the remote participants in a minute. After he signs it, could I have them just have their names, just so I have
Yes,
a
of
record of
course.
who's
Yep.
testifying?
looks like, there's two, but it's under this name here, so, we can ask.
Put that list there, just so I have that one as well. All those who are present here, who are going to be offering any testimony to this matter, can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? You've been placed under oath. And for those of you who are joining us remotely, we have Andrew, and ma'am, your name for the record, ma'am?
Andrew Dusa,
Okay. And is there someone else there that's going to be testifying?
my wife.
Her name's?
Danielle Duso?
Would the two of you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. You've been placed under oath. In the owner's witnesses, okay. And man, just as a formality, you were placed under oath with the rest of the folks there, so this is a formality. All right, the hearing has been opened. Folks have been placed under oath. I believe we will start with Ms. Contois.
Thank you, Chair. So I have a packet for the board members with information that we'll be going over tonight and copies of information regarding the dogs and prior complaints that we've had for them. So we're here tonight to hear a nuisance and dangerous dog hearing for two dogs that reside at number 12 Willis Street, owned by Dina Doust. The first dog is identified as Dobby. He's an adult neutered male brown brindle hound mix. He is currently licensed in town, current on his rabies vaccination, and has a previous history of dog licenses throughout his lifetime in town. The second dog is Champ, an adult neutered male tan and black German Shepherd mix, also currently licensed in the town of Auburn, current on his rabies vaccination, and has past history of licenses within the town. So on October 12th, 2022, the Board of Health received a request in writing by Maureen Dubois of 19 Southbridge Street for a nuisance or dangerous dog hearing in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 140, Section 157, regarding the two dogs identified as Dobby and Champ, owned by Dina Doust of 12 Willis Street. The hearing request reads as follows. Good morning, Paula. It was sent to our office. I spoke with Animal Control Officer Amy Contois yesterday and would like to request a dangerousness hearing in regards to two aggressive dogs owned by Brian and Dina Doust of 12 Willis Street. I and another neighbor met with Ms. Contois over a year ago to discuss issues with the dogs and voiced our concerns about the safety of neighbors. When these two dogs get loose, they are unresponsive to the owner's commands. Conversations with the owners fall on deaf ears. There have now been two incidents in less than 6 months of the dogs biting someone, the latest being a police officer. The neighbors live in fear of these dogs and it's time for something to be done. Please advise as to the date and time in which the hearing will be held in order for me to inform the other neighbors who wish to attend the hearing. Please feel free to contact me should you have any questions. And the original email is included in the packet as well. So for some background information, to date, Animal Control and other departments and agencies for the town have received 5 nuisance complaints for the dogs residing at 12 Willis Street since 2020. There's no history of animal-related complaints to that property prior to 2020. These complaints include 1 loose or nuisance by restraint complaint in 2020, 2 loose or nuisance by restraint complaints in 2021, and 1 unconfirmed dog bite incident and 1 confirmed dog bite incident in 2022. Thus far, Animal Control has not picked up or impounded either of the dogs at 12 Willis Street, and the owners have been able to get the dogs back under control following all reported incidents. In 2022, the dog identified as Champ was reported to have jumped on a passerby who was traveling by foot on Willis Street and reportedly may have bitten and or scratched this person. However, the person involved in this incident did not remain on scene, did not report the bite, and the town was not notified of a dog bite by a medical facility in relation to the incident. So at this point, we cannot confirm whether or not there was an actual bite with punctures to the skin. Most recently, on October 5th, 2022, at approximately 5:25 PM, Officer Koopman of the Auburn Police Department responded to a report of 2 loose dogs in the area of Elmwood Street and Preston Ave. The dogs were treated to the property of 12 Willis Street, where Brian Doust of 12 Willis was found to be home. While on the property and approaching Mr. Doust, Officer Koopman was charged by the dog identified as Dobby and sustained 3 bites, which required medical attention. Mr. Doust was able to secure Dobby while Officer Koopman moved to the porch to separate himself from the dogs. However, Officer Koopman became trapped on the porch as Champ was still running loose, and Mr. Doust was unable to gain control of him. The owner, Dina Doust, and her 2 children arrived on scene and were able to gain control and secure Champ. Due to the nature of this incident, it required response from multiple police officers, Assistant Animal Control Officer Colleen Hines, and fire and EMS personnel. Dobby was placed on a 10-day quarantine following the bite incident and was released without incident. In relation to this incident, the owner of both dogs, Ms. Doust, was issued 2 citations for 2 violations of the Town of Auburn nuisance by restraint bylaw. The citations have a payment or appeal deadline of November 25th, 2022. Between 2021 to the present, Ms. Doust has taken some remedial actions in an attempt to correct the behaviors of the dogs that were causing reported nuisances to the neighborhood. This has included the installation of fencing in the backyard of 12 Willis Street, training sessions with a certified dog trainer for Champ, and cameras to monitor the dogs. She has also stated that she intends on moving forward with training sessions for the second dog, Dobby, as well. So included in the rest of your packet, you have the written email for the request in writing by Ms. Maureen Dubois, the licensing information with up-to-date rabies information for both of the dogs as well, copies of prior complaints. There's also a written narrative from the police department for the bite incident that occurred on October 5th. There's also a copy of the notice of violation and the citations that were mailed to the owner of the dogs. And then included at the very end, at the back of it, is a statement that was provided by Ms. Doust from a dog trainer that she has been working with for the dogs. I will read this. So it says, "Whom it may concern, I've been working with Dina Coughlin and Colin Doust and their dogs, Dobby and Champ. Champ struggles with reactivity to strangers and other dogs. Dobby is fearful of strangers and other dogs. Champ has had several incidents where he got loose and was unable to be controlled for an extended period. More recently, both dogs got loose, resulting in Dobby biting someone. Dina and Colin are dedicated dog owners. They have worked hard to ensure that their dogs are not a nuisance to others. They've installed a fence. They have taken steps to be certain that the dogs would not escape into the neighborhood. Along with that, they have been very dedicated to behavior modification training to help their dogs to have a better reaction to things that make them uncomfortable. They have been reliably meeting the dogs' needs for exercise and enrichment. My opinion that is, as long as the dogs continue to be properly contained, that they will not be a bother or a safety hazard to the neighbors." This is signed by Katrina Klein, a certified dog trainer with House of Klein Dog Training.
Any recommendations? I know some of these have had recommendations in the past. Do you have any recommendations at all? Or?
I do, but I'll probably hold off until testimony is taken from the complainant and the dog owner.
Okay. Are there any parties present who would like to provide testimony? Ma'am, your name? Maureen Dubois. Okay, you've been placed under oath. If you would give firsthand testimony.
Excuse me.
Yeah, one
If I
second.
may, I'm thinking, do we need anybody coming up to the microphone here?
Oh, so that, yeah. So Ms. Dubois, if you could come up here, please. We do have some remote participants just so they can hear you as
Just
well,
want to
okay?
make sure. Okay, that's, thank you.
And just still confirming the remote participants, you can hear us still?
Yes, we can.
And Ms. could you just do a test count to 5 just so we can make sure they can hear you?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Do you just-
Yes, I can hear it.
Thank you.
Ms. Dubois, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to start by saying that I take no pleasure in having to do this, request this hearing, or be here. I just want to make that clear. As a former dog breeder of German Shepherds, I have trained numerous dogs, and I have conducted aptitude tests on countless puppies. So I think I'm qualified to speak in regards to these dogs. We're all aware of the incident with the police officer. What happened that day is standard operating procedure for when those dogs get loose. These dogs have hit the trifecta. They're aggressive, they're unapproachable, and they do not respond to the owner command. There's been a number of incidences. I can go back to a former neighbor on Willis Street that threw a trash toter at one of the dogs that was loose because it was coming after his 5-year-old daughter. Those people no longer live in the neighborhood. The police were called in that incident as well. Myself and my son were awoken at 1 o'clock in the morning one night because my dog, I have a German Shepherd, a 6-year-old German Shepherd. He was going absolutely crazy, so much so that my son had to lock him in the closet. Their son, pickup truck, was in my driveway with the headlights flashing through the windows, so it was impeding our vision. When I came around, finally got vision, the son's truck was in my driveway. The son and the daughter, the younger daughter, were running around my front yard chasing Champ, I believe, and this was at 1 a.m. When I stepped out onto the front porch, the two kids spotted me, jumped back in the truck, went down Southbridge Street, up Jerome Ave, back down Willis Street, with the dog in the middle of the street chasing the truck around the neighborhood. I then made it to the back side of my house, and when I looked at my back blind, that's when I saw all the blue flashing lights. Apparently there had been some kind of incident between their teens and some other teens, and the dog managed to get out, therefore it was running around the neighborhood. I was working out front in my yard one occasion, and I received a call from Polar, informing me about the dogs. I informed them who the dogs belonged to, and I told them to call the police. I then called Brian Dost to inform him that the dogs were loose. He didn't answer his phone. I left a voicemail. I then went out again to the back side of the house, and once again, both the dogs were running all over the neighborhood. Let's see, what's another one? There was another occasion when both the dogs got loose. My dog was out, and I have I'm fenced between the two properties, but this fence is just 2x4s with wire fawn fencing stapled to it, and it's like 50 plus years old. So the fencing is all rusted, and it's not secure. The two dogs were running the fence line. My dog then, of course, is running the fence line. Champ was the one running all over the yard. The other dog, Dobie, was in full-blown attack mode. That dog was charging my fence, sticking his head through my fence. Both sets were on full display, lips up over the gums, and that dog wanted my dog. A couple of times as my dog and Champ were running up the fence, as Champ approached Dobie, Dobie actually turned on Champ in 2 occasions. I was out there for over 5 minutes by myself trying to contain my dog before one of their children came out, and then it just went from there. That was when we called the dog officer. The dog officer came down, met with myself, met with other neighbors, Jeff and Judy Jazz. We had conversation. The very next day, after we had that conversation, I was sitting on my deck. Dina came home from work, brought Dobie out, tethered Dobie to a tree out in front, went back in the house. The door no sooner closed, and Dobie got loose, and I sat there and watched Dobie go all around the neighborhood. And as we had discussed, as long as they're on their property, it was okay. Dobie then went off the property, was down Willis Street, came back around, through the yard again, over into the neighbor's yard, onto Jerome Ave, because there's a stream that separates some over the stream into the other neighbor's yard, running all around the neighborhood for a good 20 minutes. Nobody in that house was aware that that dog was loose. I called the police. I told them the neighbor's dog was loose. The officer said to me, well, did you tell the neighbors that their dog was loose? And I said, no, I did not. I am not going on that property. These are dangerous dogs. And because it was after hours, the dog officer wasn't there. Nobody ever showed up. And then all of a sudden, Dobie walks up onto the deck, and Dina just happened to see him at the door, and she opened up the door and let him in. She had no idea that dog had been loose. You know about the incident with the young teen walking down the street? We had, some of us neighbors, we had actually thought it was one of their kids' friends. Later found out it was just an innocent person walking down the street that Champ went out and jumped on and bit. There have been another neighbor, has a little Yorkie, and I'm not sure which dog it was, again, was loose, went into that neighbor's yard, went after her dog. She had to scoop up her dog and go into the house. These dogs have been loose either individually or together on numerous occasions. And when they get loose, the kids are the ones that are tasked with trying to corral these dogs. They chase them around the neighborhood for anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes to over an hour. They try to trick it into jumping into the car. They try to throw treats at it. And it's just, it's a shame. I've had numerous conversations. I had the son approach me one day. And I had tried to educate them. I tried to talk to them because I saw the son corral him one day. And as soon as he grabbed the dog by the leash, he then smacks the dog and drags him in the house. So I explained to him. I said, if I called you over here and I smacked you, I said, are you going to come over here to me again? I said, I don't think so. I said, that's not helping the dog to come to you when you're trying to call him. I explained to him when they're running around trying to grab at the dog. I said, this is an aggressive move. I said, this is passive, this is aggressive. When you constantly reach out to the dog, that's an aggressive move. The dog's not going to respond to you. So we had a long conversation. He did tell me that they had a trainer come in. The trainer said that Champ had anxiety issues and that Dobie had food aggression. And I said to him, well, that's not good. I've also had conversations with Brian. I have had a conversation with Brian. Jeff and Judy and I have had a conversation with Brian. Judy and I had a conversation with Brian. Judy screamed at Brian. Judy screamed at Dina. Judy talked to Dina and Colin. And the conversations just, there's nothing. These dogs don't respond to command. Prior to, in December of 2020, they had a tree fall down because their yard used to be fenced in. The tree fell down. When I had a conversation with Brian, he came to me one day, his hand was all bandaged, and informed me that one of the dogs attacked him. And I said to him, I said, that's not good. I said, when your dog is attacking you in your own home. A week later, he was out. He was bandaged both arms from wrist to elbows. And he approached Judy and I because she was visiting my house. And we had conversations with him. She's a former nurse, and we tried to explain to him, Brian, you need to get medical attention. He did not seek medical attention because he knew in doing so, it would trigger a report to the town. At that point, I said to him, so the dog's going to go, right? And he said, no, everything is her. Her dog, her house, her, meaning Dina. I said to him that I was very concerned. In a conversation with Jeff and Judy and I said to him, you guys don't possess the skills to be able to manage those dogs. And I said to him, I'm very concerned about your daughters. They have two beautiful daughters. I said, you need to tell your daughters that if those dogs ever start going at it in the house I said that they need to lock themselves in a room. His response was, well, that's already happened. After his wrists bandaging, I said to him, Brian, I said, you have an obligation to protect your daughters, your kids. I said, these are dangerous dogs that are attacking you people in your own home. He then tells me, so many things he said, it doesn't make sense. I just can't. I said, the problem with these dogs is they have not been trained. They are high energy dogs that do not get enough exercise. I said, they're cooped up in the house all day long. He then informed me that because the dogs themselves fight in the house, that they keep them in cage. So I said to him, you realize that you're dealing with literally caged animals. Kind of saw the light bulb go off on his head. Again, I said to him, something needs to be done with these dogs. I said, you people have no control over them. After the incident with the police officer, and I learned that EMS were not able to tend to that man's wounds because these dogs were still loose running around, that kind of did it for me. One of our neighbors, Wanda, is 80 plus years old. She walks up and down Willow Street with her walker. I can't imagine what's going to happen one day when those dogs are loose and she's walking down the street and she gets attacked or she gets jumped on and knocked down, and then EMS can't get to her. We have little kids in the neighborhood, and he will stand there and say to me, those kids are so cute. He tells me, oh, they would be traumatized. You know, he said, Champ is friendly. I said, no, Brian, he's not. I said, I watched that dog's body language. I watched the way that dog operates. I've tried to educate him. I've tried to educate the son. The son, I tried to give them tips. They have no control over these dogs. When the fence fell down in 2020, that's when they started tethering the dogs to either a tree out front or to a post in their backyard. In the conversation with all of these attacks, I finally said to him, Brian, I said, the neighborhood has had enough. I'm centrally located in the neighborhood, and we've been there, I think, longer than anybody in the world, as you know. So everybody has a tendency to come to me. And I tell everybody, call a dog officer, call a dog officer. If they're not calling and complaining about the dogs constantly barking, the dogs barking, 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 bark, they do nothing to quiet the dogs. I said to him, Brian, you need to get the backyard cleaned up, get it fenced in. I said, because the neighbors have had it. I said, and they're going to report you to the town, and the town's going to. So they did. They did fence in the yard finally. At this point, I don't know what else to do. These dogs do not respond to command. I do know, and as you stated, that the older daughter is working, I guess, in a doggy daycare place, and I'm sure they are working with her. But I also see them when they're working in the yard. These dogs need serious specialized training. These dogs are beyond my skill set. And I know that they're beyond the daughter's skill set. I watch her, but you can't work with a dog one day and then not work with them for another week and a half. These dogs need every day, all day training. The dogs, since they put the fence up, they put the two dogs out in the back area. I have witnessed 2 dog fights in their fenced-in backyard.
And when did the fence go up? Mr.
I'm
Hall?
sorry?
When did the fence go up?
The fence has only been up, I think, a couple of months, you know, and in that couple of months, like I said, I witnessed 2 dog fights. One dog fight, I will tell you, put my heart up into my throat because Brian and Dina were sitting in a chair. Their 2 daughters were outside. The 2 dogs were there, and the 2 dogs started going at it. The daughters were screaming. One daughter was trying to pull Champ away. The other daughter was trying to pull Dobie away. She got down underneath the groin of the dog from behind and was trying to, and when I saw both of those beautiful girls with their faces within inches of these dogs fighting, and both the parents sat in a chair. And then finally, Dina stood up, picked up a chair, swung it in the direction of the two dogs, and finally separated them. Brian never got up out of his chair. When these dogs get loose, it's all left up to the kids. Brian and Dina, they may step out on the porch for 10 minutes, but for the most part, they do nothing to help. There is not one person in that household, and now I have to say there's only, I believe, the son, I believe, is no longer living at home, and I don't think the younger daughter is living at home any longer either. So it's now, to my best of my knowledge, just Dina, Brian, and Colin, the older daughter. None of them have any control over these dogs. And I don't know what else to do. I feel bad for the family. I feel bad for the dogs. But it's gotten to the point where the safety of those in the neighborhood has to outweigh anything with regard to these dogs. I can't imagine somebody being attacked or a little kid getting attacked and bitten, and the mother can't get to their child because these dogs are running and hovering and barking and growling. I don't have the answer. I don't know what it is. And like I said at the start of this meeting, I take no pleasure in this. But it needs to stop. It just needs to stop.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else willing to offer any testimony in the audience? And I will get to the remote participants in a second as well. Sure, come on up. Good evening, thanks for coming.
Even sure.
So, your floor.
So I believe that it was October 5th. I was called to the area for a report of loose dogs in the neighborhood. Run of the mill, have done it dozens of times, not particularly this neighborhood, but all over town. Respond to the area. I see one resident on Jerome Ave, points in the general direction down Willis, go down Willis. I don't recall seeing any of the owners outside my initial time down Willis. I proceeded up Elmwood at Preston. That's when I heard one of the dogs barking, I think Dobie. Got out of my car, hoping that the dog would come up to me, as, again, in previous, I've had plenty of experiences with friendly dogs coming right up to me. Oh, great, jump in the back of the car and problem solved. The dog came within 10 yards of me, but then proceeded to run back towards Willis. Okay, this isn't working. Hooked back around, and then at this point, the gentleman owner, he's out on his front lawn and he gestures for me to stop. So I stop approximately one household away from his, get out of my cruiser and start walking towards him, thinking, okay, he's going to offer me some useful piece of information regarding the dogs. At no time did he make any sort of note or gesture that the dogs were his, or that they lived there at all. So I see the first dog, Dobie, up towards Elmwood. He comes towards us walking down the street. I'm thinking, okay, great, this is going to be over nice and easy. Dog starts barking. Then the other dog, Champ, comes out of a neighbor across the street. Comes out of his front yard. Like, oh, great, they're both here. Then again, trying to have conversation with the gentleman, and the dogs start barking and barking and barking. I'm like, okay, they're really happy someone's here or excited. Then all of a sudden, I think both of them started jumping on me. At this point, I have my back to them. Dobie, again, got a few, at least three, got me 3 times with teeth and claws. At which point I retreated to the gentleman's front porch. He said, "You can go on the front porch." At no time whatsoever did he make any attempt to restrain the dogs, whether by collar, which I don't remember either of them wearing, or any other sort of clothing that they might have been wearing. When I got to the porch, I was able to turn around and kick Dobby in the head at least 4 times, causing him to retreat. And then that dog was able to be put away, it seemed, without incident. The other dog, Champ, continued to run around. At this point, I'd obviously reported what had happened, and fellow officers came to assist. But Champ kept running around, barking here and there. Every time I tried to get away, he would come back towards me as if, okay, I'm his target or what have you. Sergeant Lamoureux was able to put his cruiser in the residence driveway. I couldn't. That was 20 feet. I couldn't retreat, or I couldn't leave the steps and get to his car without the dog coming between me and the car. And finally, after feels like half an hour at least went by. At this point, we have a few officers there, fire and EMS are there, and the gentleman is concerned. His suggestion is for us to leave for approximately 20 to 30 minutes and all will be okay. And we're telling him, we've been here for at least this time and nothing's changed, so I don't know whether we were there or not, how that would have made the incident any better or worse. Eventually, Champ retreats further towards, or goes towards Elmwood Street. At that time, I take the opportunity to go to run and sprint towards Sergeant Lamoureux's car and pretty much dive into the back seat. And at that point, he pepper sprays the dog, and then the dog eventually is contained. I don't know by what means, but during the whole ordeal, the gentleman owner just stood there as if he had no idea what to do. It wasn't his dog. It wasn't his dog. It was his wife, his ex-wife, claiming zero responsibility for the dog. And every time either Lieutenant Charlton or Sergeant Lamoureux or myself made some sort of effort for him to restrain the dog, he just continued, "It's not my dog. It doesn't listen," etc. He couldn't get a collar around it, or excuse me, he couldn't get a leash around it. It didn't respond to treats or anything like that. Nothing was his responsibility. And yes, I did watch pretty much as an ambulance is, again, 50 feet in front of me and I can't get to it because this dog is running around, and we're all contemplating, okay, what are we going to do to restrain this thing, because the owner is absolutely incapable of containing the dog, at least in that instance. I was not there just to hear all the other incidents given by witnesses and residents, so I can only imagine. Here I am, able to take care of myself, never mind someone that, once they're attacked by a dog, can't, whether it be child or elderly person.
In your opinion, was the dog's actions disproportionate to it protecting itself?
Yes.
All right. And I see that Sergeant Lamoureux deployed OC spray.
Yes.
In your expertise or training, what means are what's the escalation of taking care of a dog that is unresponsive to any? How are you trained as a police officer to control a dog such as this?
I felt I was definitely within my use of force of using lethal force. Fortunately, it did not come to that. If the dog didn't retreat after I had kicked it in the head. During this whole ordeal, I had my taser out in case the dog came after me again. The other officers on scene again had pepper spray at the ready. At that point, you just go through the tools and until it can hopefully be restrained. In that instance, I mean that was my first and hopefully last incident of a dog attacking somebody that was uncalled for.
And did I understand you correctly to say that you were on the street when the dog attacked you?
Yes.
You were on the street, okay.
Yes.
You're not even on the property.
The later identified as the homeowner gestured for me to stop my car.
Yeah.
So as I didn't scare the dogs off, I'm like, okay, this sounds like a reasonable request, and then got out of my car and proceeded to walk towards the house.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else present who would like to offer any testimony? No? Ma'am? No? Mr. Dussault, yourself or your wife, Danielle, would you like to offer any testimony?
I don't. My concern is two young kids. I have a 6-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son. Their bus stop is at the end of Willis and Jerome. So they are there every day, getting on and off the bus. They are not big enough to fend off those dogs if they attack them. They're just not big enough. They're not strong enough. And my concern is those two kids getting attacked by those dogs that don't listen to their owner and get out constantly. That's my main concern.
Very good.
My wife, she has a testimony on the incident of that day. I'd like to hear from her.
Sure, if she wants to offer any testimony, I'm sure we'd love to hear from her.
Okay, so I was coming back from picking my up from school, and I parked my car in the driveway and went into the house with the kids. I looked out their window to check something, and I see the two dogs loose that day. This is before the cops came, and someone in the road stopped to try to help the dogs so they didn't get hit by a car. So these people got out of their car to approach the dogs, and the dogs went at them. They actually had to run away from these dogs because they were so scared and jump back in their car. They weren't approachable to try to get them out of the road. And then after that, a few minutes is when I started to see the firefighters and the cops came in the ambulance. But that's what happened before the cops came. So I just wanted to, that's the part I saw.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much.
That's it. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to give testimony before I, ma'am, if you would like to come up as the dog owner. And thank you for coming and offering testimony on behalf of you and your dogs.
The day of the big incident, I am divorced. My ex-husband is an alcoholic. He was drunk that day. He's supposed to be out of the house since February. He is not. I'm working on it. I don't know how the dogs got out. I don't know what he did. I knew nothing about the incident until I got home, which was apparently hours after it started. The cops had called me. I was in Shrewsbury, and I came home. My daughter came home. My daughter had Champ in that house within 2 minutes of when we got home. Champ listens to her. Dobie listens to me. Dobie likes me and nobody else. He's a very scared dog. I got him out from a rescue in Raleigh. They lied to me, but by then I already had him. I'm making the best of it. I trained him when I got him. COVID did a number on him. Then the tree went down and I lost the fence. I worked really hard to get that divorce, which I finally got. I refinanced the house. The first thing I did was the fence. The fence was totally my idea. Just so you know, Brian argued with me even the day of the fence install to not do it. He lies. He manipulates. The things he tells the neighbors, the things he tells me are not the same things. I can't trust anything he says or does. That's actually why the cameras are there now, so that we can try to watch to keep him from doing anything with the dogs, from letting them out. Since I put the fence up, that day is the only day they got out. They do not get out since the fence is up. COVID did a number on them. They're both very reactive now. They both are in training. They both just finished with House of Klein. I'm taking Dobie to Pack of Paws. We start in a week with a reactive dog training class. First he has to meet with a behaviorist, and then we'll start the training.
And since this complaint, I understand that there, what, could walk me through again, what actions you have taken since this complaint has come, I guess we can say to a head, to curtail these actions? with
We were
respect to
already
what happened?
doing House of Klein at that point. I then entered Dobie, because Dobie was gonna go to Pack of Paws, but I also got him into House of Klein, just so that I'd at least have had him seen by someone before we came here for this. And they're not crated at all. Brian was wrong about that. They both do have crates in the house. Dobie hasn't even walked into his crate in months. They do have incidents but that day when they fought, it was actually me and Colin that pulled the dogs apart, not, Brielle won't do it. Brielle would not get involved in that. Colin is very good with the dogs, and she's learning more and more all the time. She works with a behaviorist where she works. She's learning a lot. Champ responds to her, and she trains him every day. So she works with him a lot. Dobie is actually not a very high-energy dog. He sleeps a lot. If you saw him on the camera, he just sleeps all day. Champ barks a lot, which is why I try to keep the windows closed. I know that's not fun. So the fence is up. There are gates. There's a gate at the front of the deck so that they can't go out. My ex-husband is not allowed to put them out. He's told to not touch the dogs. Only we put them out. Put them out one at a time together if we're with them. And we're working on it. I don't think they're aggressive dogs, but I know that they look like they are. Champ is very loud, very barky, and Dobie is scared of everything.
Even hearing testimony and having evidence that I've been a police officer, you would still take that statement?
Yeah, I don't think they're aggressive, but I know that they are very reactive. I don't think they're out to get anyone, but they are very nervous. Dobie's very nervous.
All right. Anything else you'd like to add?
I'll answer any, I don't really know what to say. Some of those things I'd never even heard of. So the kids kept things from me that I didn't know about. So I'm just kind of a wreck, but I'll answer any questions that anyone has.
You said that the kids had keeping stuff from
I didn't
you?
know about the 1 o'clock in the morning thing or that.
Okay.
Champ got out. Champ was a disaster for a long time. I didn't think Dobie was, got loose very often because Dobie doesn't want to be away from me. Dobie just wants to be where I am. So,
Are you aware that are you aware of the 5 nuisance complaints they received since 2020?
no.
You're not aware?
I mean, I am now, but no, I did not know.
Are you able to speak to those nuisance
Sure.
complaints?
So the previous complaints, the 2 from this year, were one involving the police officer and one earlier in the year, when one of the dogs, I believe Champ, jumped on the passerby. So I did have a discussion with Dina about that situation.
I contacted animal control myself that day when that one happened, because I did try to get that person's information, and he walked away from me.
Okay.
So then I contacted animal control asking what I should do.
One of the complaints, I believe it was in 2021, was actually, it's logged as a complaint, but it was actually one of the children from the household, Colin Doust, calling to inform the town that the dogs were loose and she was attempting to catch the dogs. A previous complaint was from Ms. Du Bois, where I did have a conversation with the Dousts about plans, where, it was mentioned about getting training for the dogs, the potential of putting up a fence on the property. And apart from that, I believe the previous complaint was one that happened in 2020, where one of the dogs was loose. A neighbor called it in, and the dog was contained by the owners at that point. So no further action was needed. And I can say that the town can only react and respond to complaints that are filed with us. So if there's more going on in the neighborhood, but it's not reported to the town, we won't have record of those. We won't have any action taken on that because the town isn't aware of it.
But in your line of work, these 5 nuisance complaints, which are in the narrative and property history, those were addressed to the dog owners?
So they were either addressed in real time because the dogs were contained, or a discussion was had regarding complaints that were coming in from the town. In the instance where the daughter was self-reporting that the dogs were loose, we didn't have to do anything further with that.
Did any of those complaints go to you, ma'am, or did they go to
No.
other people, or do you still have no memory of those?
Do you know if a conversation happened with Brian on that one?
Sorry, I'm not sure which.
You said that, I thought there was a complaint from last year that then you talked to somebody in our house.
I spoke with you.
You do? Oh, sorry. All I can say is I'm really stressed with my divorce. So maybe I forgot that.
Any other questions?
No, why do you, I know it's conjecture, but, does Brian just pretty much not handle the dogs at all? That he wouldn't help the officer?
I don't know why.
Okay.
I know he was very drunk that day.
Okay.
When I tried to ask him what happened, I couldn't get a straight answer out of him. I
Well, if
haven't
he's
tried
not
to
home and the children aren't home, then there's nobody there to help, like, contain the dogs, pretty much, if they got out.
He's home, he doesn't work. He hasn't worked in close to 2 years, so he's usually there.
Right, but it doesn't sound like he's gonna have anything to do with the dogs, so
No.
if nobody's there, then nobody can control the dogs.
When they're in the house,
No, if they got loose.
if they're in the house and no one's home, there's no way for them to get loose, though.
They have gotten loose, so. they do
Right,
get loose.
but when somebody was there to,
So if they get loose and there's nobody, no member of your family, Brian's not gonna be helpful at all, basically.
right, which is why he's not allowed to touch the dogs. So he shouldn't, can I guarantee that it won't happen again? No, because I can't control his behavior. I have a court date on Monday. I'm trying to get him out again.
Anyone else wishing to, any further testimony? Ms. Contois, do you have any recommendations?
I do. So in recognition that the owners are attempting to take remedial actions, including the installation of the fence and seeking training services for the dogs, and understanding that the town hasn't received any reports of the dogs being loose in recent months, apart from the incident in October, it would be my recommendation that the dogs identified as Dobby and Champ of 12 Willis Street be deemed to be nuisance dogs for the term of 1 calendar year from the date of determination, pending review and no violations during the time frame, with the following order: that the owner shall post a beware of dogs sign in clear view on the property. While outside, Dobby and Champ shall be restrained by leash, lead, or tether at all times in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 140, Section 174E, regarding tethering and confinement restrictions, unless actively engaged in a professional setting where tethering may inhibit training exercises and/or activities under the guidance of an animal professional. That Dobby and Champ shall be humanely muzzled while off property, unless actively engaged in a professional setting where muzzling may inhibit training exercises and/or activities under the guidance of an animal professional. And that the owner shall provide proof of continued training services with a certified dog trainer, certified behaviorist, or veterinary behaviorist, and that the owner shall provide proof of those services obtained in writing to animal control.
Do we have a copy of that, or can I use? Was it in our packet? I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
No, it wasn't included in the packet.
Oh, this is the recommendation.
This is the recommendations. Okay, so, the training that the dogs are undergoing, is that a CCTV PDT Certification Council? Is that-
So the letter that we received from the trainer, that person is certified. I'm not sure if that's the person that's been working directly with the family, Katrina Klein.
She was working with them.
She is a certified dog trainer. I do know that the organization Pack of Paws is also, or they do also employ certified dog trainers. And that they do actually specialize in dogs with reactivity and aggression.
Do you have insurance for these animals? As far as if something like this happens and if it bites someone from the property, from the public, or Officer Koopman was on duty, so I'm sure that that as an IOD claim, but as far as if someone from the public was to get, if we listen to the concerns of your neighbors here, do you have an extra insurance?
I'd have to ask my insurance agent what I have, what I need.
When would you consider something such as proof of insurance for that?
Sure. So actually, in the Massachusetts general law,
That's where I'm reading it from.
yes, yeah. So a resident would have to show proof that they were trying to obtain a claim. So the way the Massachusetts general law is, it would be that they would try to get additional insurance for not less than $100,000, and they would have to provide, either an insurance binder or proof that they tried to obtain insurance in that amount.
I mean, I have some concerns about the dogs still getting out from the property. What happens, if the dogs get out again? How does this affect tell me again, Amy, how this would affect this?
Sure. So if they were to violate the order, in the past, we have brought it before the board for another hearing, an additional hearing for violation of the order. So that would be a violation of anything included in the conditions of the order, or if, there were additional complaints that could be confirmed from people in the neighborhood related to this and related to, say, the dogs getting loose in the neighborhood.
And then that would possibly trigger another hearing and review of this, they're deemed whether they're a nuisance versus dangerous again. Is that how that works?
Yep, in the past, we've done a secondary hearing to review what the existing conditions were on the order and to make modifications as deemed fit if there continued to be violations at that point.
So, Ms. Douse, after hearing the testimony from the neighbors remotely and here and being a member of the board and chairman of the board for the past few years, I will tell you that this is probably the longest dog hearing and also probably one of the most concerning that I've had. Reading, hearing the testimony from your neighbors, somewhat small children. There are folks that are the elderly in the neighborhood as well, who are out, who are walking, who would not be able to defend themselves. We heard testimony this evening of a police officer who is authorized to use lethal and less lethal force that was confined to a porch. And it was, I can only make this as it was almost like an active shooter situation where he had to retreat and jump into, in his own words, a sergeant's cruiser. That to me is crazy. And I think it also shows a lot of restraint on the police officers' actions in their training, in their expertise, that they did not use lethal force on the dog. He was bit 3 times. He required medical treatment. So that weighs heavily on me. I know that there are, and you've stated that there are personal issues at play here as well. This board will not opine on those. I can offer empathy and sympathy, but know that the actions of others or what may have gotten you here. Regardless, you're here. So I think that, I mean, I'm ready to make a motion, if you do have anything else.
No, I think. Oh, wait.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
You have to, so I'll have, actually, Ms. Dowse, if you wouldn't mind, you would sit down, you two, you can replace.
Thank you.
And just on the insurance issue.
Yeah, I want to speak to the insurance issue. Like I said, as a former breeder of German Shepherds, I had a kennel license in town. I had 5 adults at one point. Insurance is very difficult to get. With insurance companies have what they call a bad dog list. There are a number of breeds: Shepherds, Rottweilers, Dobermans, most of your pit bulls. In fact, with regard to Champ, he's listed. She has him licensed as a Shepherd mix. That pit bull is a predominant breed in that dog. No insurance company will insure you for a pit bull. It's very difficult when you have that bad dog list. Most of them will not insure you. Some, they're starting to ease over the years. They are requiring specialized training, certified training. You have to show proof. But there's a lot. I know when I had my kennel license, there were only 2 insurance companies in the state of Massachusetts that would insure me for those dogs. So insurance is not easy to get. It's another conversation I had with Brian. I was very concerned. And I said to him, if somebody gets seriously injured, I said, you could lose everything. So if insurance is the issue, I seriously doubt that at this point, especially now given the history with these dogs, I can't see them, getting insurance for these dogs.
Ma'am, did you have any, you had your hand raised, if you could come up, please? And maybe if you could just identify yourself for the record.
Judy Jazz.
Okay.
And I'd like to speak to 2 issues. The first one was I witnessed the stranger dog bite. He was attacked from behind by the dog, the brown dog. I believe it was Champ. I saw the whole thing happen. The guy was just walking down the street. Champ jumped him from behind. The guy struggled, pushed him off. They did nothing. He was halfway up the driveway to say something to them, and I was running over. I was loud, and he thanked me for coming to his rescue, and then he walked away. I didn't get his name. I thought it was Colin's boyfriend. I didn't know who it was. I thought it was a relative, because he helps a lot with the dog. Colin and her boyfriend are very secure in their handling of Champ now. They've learned quite a bit. They've grown, and it's a shame that it's gotten to this point. I don't know anything about Dobie, the brown dog. I didn't know who bit the officer. I was resting and sleeping, and my husband said, "You're not going to believe what's happening." This is the other episode. So when I came down, there was nothing but chaos on our street. Neighbors had come up. They were supposed to come to this meeting to talk about it, how scared they were. One of the guys that witnessed the Jerome side activities, I had heard that whole story from him, so I know it's a true story. So, it's just a sad situation that we have 2 vicious dogs in our neighborhood. I'm scared to death to walk down the street. They come into my yard. The dog reveals his teeth to my husband. He's afraid. And I'm afraid now. I wasn't for like a long time. That's why I've never complained about them. But I'm afraid now. And as far as the neighbor, Wanda, she's a very good friend of mine, one of my best friends. She's 84. and she walks with a walker. The first time she ever went down the street with her walker alone, because she's very unsteady, the dogs were out of control, barking and yelling. There was a fight going on, and she heard the dog. She saw him jump up onto the railing, just about to jump over, and she took her walker and she hurried back up. I'm surprised she didn't fall in the street. She told me all about it. So I said to her, "Were you scared?" She said, "Yes, I was." 84 years old. She's lived there forever. That's her home. She doesn't want to go anywhere else. That's where she wants to be. So, I love the girls. The Douse family has been always good neighbors. It's the dogs. Brian was absolutely no help to the officers. He started talking about, "Don't shoot my dog." He was being obnoxious to the officers. That they did so well under such animosity. I can't believe that Dina has to put up with what she has to put up with. It's terrible. It's a terrible, terrible situation. I don't know what you're going to do about it. And I don't want anything to happen to those dogs, but I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't. And I'm afraid. We're all afraid. I don't know how else to say it. And I'm really sorry.
You did say it, and thank you for your testimony.
Well, I wasn't gonna, but I just, I'm really sorry.
So I'm ready to make a motion here, and this is weighed heavily with hearing the testimony here, and what I had said previously is I will propose a motion that the dogs listed in the complaint, both Dobie and Champ, and we that the following order issued by the animal control officer, numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, be upheld. And I also want Ms. Doust to also attempt and try hard to get insurance for these dogs. I think that is of your benefit in the case, and I do not want this to come back for a hearing if this was to ever happen again. But you should make an attempt to get insurance for these dogs pursuant to the Mass General Law, and that we deem both of these dogs dangerous dogs. Not nuisance animals, dangerous dogs.
So just, sorry, one point of clarification, because the main difference between listing a nuisance and a dangerous dog is that dangerous dogs, you have to choose one or more, so you get less leeway. So what's included in the Mass General Law is the humanely restrained, confined to the property,
Right.
obtaining the insurance. So you're stuck to what's included in that Mass General Law versus nuisance. The board can still take anything that's included in that Mass General Law and add to it, which is where we added in the training. So that's the main difference between those two determinations for the order.
So the less of, because, I mean, in my opinion, these are dangerous animals. These animals bit a police officer. They're dangerous to the public at this point. Maybe they can be reformed, retrained. I would hope that would be the case. This is more than a nuisance.
Right.
And I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just think, maybe I wanted to offer some protection for the owner to get some insurance for the dogs. And maybe I just strike that because everything that you had said is, I mean, they're going to post a sign. This is all, we can still call them dangerous animals with your recommendation.
So based on what I'm hearing from you, I would slightly alter my recommendation, include, I believe it's 3 through your addition of 5. Include that in an order, but remove the posting of a sign and the training services, and possibly just make that a recommendation by the board. But just following the Mass General Law for what can be included in the dangerous dog order. Because everything else in that recommendation falls in line with a dangerous dog determination. So the humanely muzzling, humanely restraining, obtaining the insurance claim, or attempt to obtain the insurance. But only the posting of the sign and the training are not part of the dangerous dog determination orders.
Well, that you can't add that to a dangerous, I mean,
She's already doing it though.
yeah, she is, yeah.
So, I think we make note of the record that,
Yeah.
that I'm not comfortable making these dogs a nuisance. This is more than a nuisance animal.
Right.
These dogs have proven that they're dangerous. So, and I think that's where we're at with this. So I would deem these, my motion is to make them both dangerous animals and also follow with your recommendation, your order here that you have under your recommendation, 1, 2, 3, and 4. As you had read, we cannot go that gives us the insurance, that she makes an attempt to get the insurance, correct?
We can include that.
We'll include that. And I know, granted, we can't do the training, but again, she's already doing that. So we make it a point of the record that it is already being undertaken at this point. And we highly recommend that you continue to do that. Yep.
Can we, according to what Amy is identifying as the law, make the order for the dangerous determination? And then do the recommendation of the other items that we want for the Board of Health? But I think we also need to identify the dangerous determination with a time limit or
Indefinitely.
Indefinitely.
Okay. So I guess I will put forth a motion that the dogs Dobie and Champ be deemed dangerous dogs for an indefinite length of time. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
And all those in favor signify by saying aye. Eric Otterson, aye.
Carolyn Griffin, aye.
And there are no that are opposed. That motion passes. And then I will make a second motion that we keep with the animal control officer's recommendations as written on this items listed as 1, 2, 3, 4, and also adding that the owner is to provide proof of or a attempt to gain insurance for these animals. And also, although we cannot require that she complete as a recommendation in the training of these animals that has already been undertaken. Is there a second?
I second those recommendations.
And
the that are listed, including the recommendation for insurance or attempt insurance.
so you second,
I second.
right? And all those in favor signify by saying aye. Eric Otterson, aye.
Carolyn Griffin, aye.
And those opposed, there are none that are opposed. That motion passes.
And just to, remind that if there is another complaint, Amy will reach out to us for a hearing to re-review all these recommendations. 'Cause they are very concerning.
Okay, with that, anyone from town, anything else just to say? I think, Ms. Contois, you will work with Ms. Doust in regards to exactly what the board's motion is, get it in writing, have it signed, make sure that she's aware of that. I'm sure that you have a formal process of doing that.
Yes, and I think there is also the appeal process. It's included in the procedural paperwork, if you wanted to,
Okay.
to mention that as well.
Yeah, no, so, Ms. Doust, you do have a a appeal process, and that can be done within 5 days upon receipt of notification of our order. You can appeal the decision within writing to the Board of Selectmen, or within 10 days, you can, of the order being issued, you can also do this. You can also petition the district court, and this can go before a magistrate at that time as well. So you do have appeals if you're not happy with the board's action. And I'm sure if you have any questions for that, Ms. Contois is willing to help you with any of that. I'll point you in the right direction. Okay? All right, thank you all very much. I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
I make a motion to close the hearing of Champ and Darby as nuisance dogs.
And I second that. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Carolyn?
I, Carolyn Griffin.
And I, Eric Otteson. None opposed. The hearing is now closed. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion to open our second hearing. It is now 7:15, and this motion is to open the hearing for the determination for unfit for human habitation at 849 Southbridge Street. All those in favor?
I second that motion.
Oh, Carolyn, thank you.
And all those in favor, so,
All those in favor? I, Carolyn Griffin.
and I, Eric Otteson. On the matter.
Thank you. So 849 Southbridge Street, the Board of Health was called on October 31st by police and fire to this property. The reason for calling, it was a call was received to first responders for a concern for somebody who was at this property. And apparently there was some sort of electricity on, a stove actually was on, appeared to have the oven unit was open, and that was reported to first responders. There was a concern that there may be arson going on there. First responders came to the property and found the property to be unsecured, and called Department of Development and Inspectional Services. I arrived at the property and contacted our building inspector. Both of us viewed the property. We actually, I'd never been called to the property before. Apparently the building department had received a complaint, I believe the year before, and had checked it out at that time. But this was my first time to the property. The police and fire officials had gone inside, and there was concern about the windows being broken. There was the front door actually was wide open, and several concerns about somebody being inside the property. It looked like there had been some sort of activity inside. There were alcohol bottles inside, trash, and there was electricity, as mentioned. Definitely not a safe place, and in coordination with the building inspector, contact was made with the wiring inspector, who came out immediately, observed the situation, and through the order of the building inspector, was able to disconnect electricity to the property. And National Grid was then called, excuse me, and they disconnected the property permanently to the facility. So with that determination I made on site, was unfit for human habitation. Definitely serious concerns by first responders and anybody that would go into the property because it was unsecured. Orders were issued by the building department and the Board of Health, and this hearing was set up for today. Some good news to report on this. Once we sent out the order, the property owner's attorney had reached out and they took immediate action to board and secure the facility. I do have some photos for you. The photos in the beginning, that shows the front door being wide open. There's definitely that big piece of wood was a window cracked. Anybody could just walk right in. There's also access from the back of the property. You'll see an electrical meter that was removed. And since that visit on October 31st, and since the posting for the unfit for human habitation, the main floor has been boarded and secured, and some additional security measures are being taken. The owner is working with the town, and the attorney did identify that if the town was satisfied, then the owner is actually out of the country right now, which is why they're not here. But they definitely are taking steps to remedy the situation, at least make it secure. And there's nobody that's allowed to be inside the property without notification to the town, obviously. They don't have a problem with the determination, so they're not opposing the determination was made. This is before the board, as we've done in the past, for the board to be able to ask questions, to uphold the decision that I've made out in the field. I feel comfortable making that decision on this property. I'm happy to answer anything that you may have.
It seems pretty self-explanatory, looking at the pictures here in the orders and knowing how you've dealt with these in the past. So I myself, I don't have any concerns.
Same.
Okay. So you need a motion from us upholding your order.
Please.
So I'd entertain a motion to uphold the director's order that the property located at 849 Southbridge Street is deemed unsafe for human habitation. Is there a second? Unfit, I'm sorry, unfit for human habitation.
Second that motion.
And all those in favor signify by saying aye. Eric Otterson, aye.
Carolyn Griffin, aye.
And anyone opposed? No. The motion stands. Okay. And with that, I would entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Make a
Close the
motion.
hearing, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Make a motion to close the hearing for the determination of unfit for human habitation at 849 South Fifth Street.
And I second that. Although, Eric Otterson, aye, in favor.
Carolyn Griffin, aye. Favor?
And no one is opposed. And motion stands. Hearing is now closed.
And then I just have communicable disease reports.
Okay.
That's the only thing we have.
Sure.
Thank you.
Those.
Those are since our last meeting.
Okay.
What? Really? That's weird. Oh, and
Yeah. Mhm. We're good. Ready?
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And we don't have anything else on the agenda, so I'd entertain a motion to close the meeting.
I think I'd like to make a motion to close the meeting for Tuesday, November 15th, 2022.
All those in favor signify, second that. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Eric Otterson, aye.
Aye, Carolyn Griffin.
And there are no one who's opposed. Hereby the meeting is now closed.